Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise.
Show me the franchise.
Show me the franchise.
Open up your wallet. Wrong episode. No, show me the franchise.
Show me the Fred, we are in a new era. You guys have seen it on the promotions. New artwork, new titles, new everything. We have officially rebranded the show from State of the Franchise, which is no more RIP. We are now Show Me the Franchise.
But don't be afraid. Don't be scared. It's all going to be the same show. It's going to be all your favorite stuff. We're going to have, what are some awesome State of the Franchise things that are going to carry over to Show Me the Franchise? Power rankings?
Yep. History?
History?
Yep.
Coulda.
Woulda.
Shoulda.
Yep.
It's all your favorites are still going to be here. It's just a new name that makes more sense.
Yes. So don't adjust that dial. You are on the right show, ladies and gentlemen. We are just rebranding for a couple of small reasons. Fred just mentioned it. We are not really talking about state of the franchises. That was the original pitch, but that has never been the case with this show.
No, we like to follow whim and whimsy too much for that.
Yes. And I think we have a lot of fans who have come on and just talked about why they love franchises. So when we have people come on, we want them to show us the franchise.
Show us. Just show us. It's fine.
And they will show you the franchise so that when you tune in to turn in and say, show me the franchise. Kind of like show me the Carfax.
Tune in to turn in is like the podcast you listen to when you go to bed, I feel.
That's true. Ooh, I do like that little nighttime, like
Tune
kind
in
of
to turn in.
Your white noise podcast. Yeah, smooth sounds to sleep to. But yes, outside of that, we also saw that we were competing with many shows called State of the Franchise. So we weren't really cutting through the ether much.
Yeah, and when you would type in State of the Franchise, our podcast didn't show up unless you added with Tom and Fred. So we want you guys to find us so much easier.
Yeah, and even then, alphabetically, that never made sense. It should be Fred and Tom, I think.
Alphabetically, I like it.
Yeah, plus it's like, we're putting the real star first.
Saving the best for last.
Oh, see, we compliment each other too much, but really we are here to give you still the same great content that you guys all know and love, and we're so excited to jump into this new journey on Show Me the Franchise. And what better episode, Fred, to get this journey underway than with our annual movies episode?
Because we love movies.
I mean, it's in the title of the show. We're quoting a movie.
Yeah, it's Jerry Maguire, if you didn't know.
He looks her in her eyes. People are like, what? Was that a song from the movie? That thing was huge. That song was on the radio.
It was a big deal. Jonathan Lipnicki, remember him?
Yeah. The kid, right?
Yeah. What is he? Do you know facts about?
Oh, I don't remember.
Spaceship or something?
Probably. But Fred, you complete me.
That was a big thing.
It was. So
I'm your Bridget Jones.
Yes. Bridget Jones. Then we all have to do British accents, even if we're American. So yeah, with the launch of this new title, we're also launching a Patreon.
Boom.
That's right, folks. Starting next week, we are going to be, next week from the time of the release schedule. So if you're looking through the episode listings, you will probably be seeing the next episode if you're backtracking on this. But yeah, we're going to be opening up a Patreon for Show Me the Franchise. So we're going to show you guys the goods that we've been trying to keep behind the curtain because they don't fit into the franchise categorization. But it should be a great time, Fred. I think we're excited. We'll fill you in on more details on the Patreon starting next week. But keep an eye out for that in our link tree and in the description of this episode where you'll find a link to that. But let's even talk about the fact that this movies episode that we're about to do, Fred, we're moving a little bit away from a traditional format in terms of how we've done the movie episodes. We've done before very Oscars focused. And at the time of this release, we are still before the 2024 Oscars that are reflecting on the best movies of 2023. But we're going to kind of stay away from calling this an Oscars episode. This is really a tribute to all of the best movies of 2023.
We just decided that, we couldn't top the slap. So we had to kind of find a new way to approach movies.
That's right.
The Oscars just did it. They did the best night of television for everyone, apparently.
It's true. So now, even if you listen to this after the Oscars, you're going to be right up to speed with what we thought were the best movies and performances and all the different categories that you love of the year.
Because this was, I'm going to say it, a stellar movie year.
Ooh, it was quite stellar. It was easily one of my favorite movie years in the recent memory. This will probably go down with how people always talk about on movie podcasts or elsewhere, oh yeah, 1999 was a great year for movies, or
93 is a big one.
2003 or something like that. I think that was Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of them were.
The Shawshank, Pulp Fiction, and Forrest Gump year.
Yeah. These are it was a very memorable year for movies. I think this was one of the few times where you saw the Oscar nominations and you're like, checks out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's picks and stuff that I hadn't seen or hadn't had interest, but a lot of the stuff that I liked got nominated, which was kind of awesome.
It was. And I cannot wait to dive into this. But before we dive into the movies of this year, Fred, I was curious if there were any movies from last year that you didn't get a chance to talk about because you didn't see them until after our episode that you wanted to highlight here.
There was just two that I caught that were 2022 movies that I heard a lot about that I didn't see. One was Bones and All.
Oh, yeah.
That was the cannibal movie with Timothée Chalamet. It's also, I'm trying to think of the older actor who was in everything, Bridge of Spies and all that.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. The guy who was in Don't Look Up.
Yeah. It's a very kind of hard movie to watch because there's cannibalism stuff in it, but I kind of found it very powerful and interesting to watch. The other one, which was a lot of fun, it didn't quite work for me, but I did enjoy it, was Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fun. Like I said, I think it was something that didn't work 100%, but I liked some Lee Pace in there. I actually thought Pete Davidson was good. Rachel Sennott? No, I can never pronounce her name.
Oh, yeah, Rachel, yeah, it's Sennett or
Sennott. Yeah, she's really good in it. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Bodies, 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 and less fun, but still enjoyed Bones and All.
Right. I definitely, Mark Rylance was the guy.
Mark Rylance, yeah.
Yeah, was the guy in that movie. Yeah, no, he's definitely got that type of voice where he's always changing his inflections a little bit.
I'm making a nice suit.
Yes, so yes, look good. But yeah, so those are very interesting movies. I certainly saw Bodies, 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 but not the others. So would be curious to check those out. The only one I saw, because I thought Skinamarink kind of fell into that, but I think it's right on that cusp of hit some of the awards circuit, but then didn't get released till 2023. I saw Alexander Garland, or is it Alex Garland's?
I think it's Alex Garland, yeah.
Yeah, Men. Men. My goodness, I can't talk. Alex Garland's Men. And I thought it was interesting because I like Garland and I like his work, like Ex Machina. I like Devs, the TV show he did.
I really like Annihilation.
And Annihilation is great. My issue, I guess, with Men was it felt just different enough, and a little bit of that thing where it's you have the one character or actor playing multiple characters. And I know that was kind of part of the whole point, but something about it just was very, and that maybe it's that guy specifically. He just was off for me.
Yeah, he's kind of like the suit in the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. He's kind of like the guy that's always with M, and he's kind of got a bigger role in that.
That's who he is. Yeah. But Yeah, I don't know. A movie I didn't think super highly of, but it was still an interesting watch all the same.
Mhm.
I did have a quiz for you though, Fred. So kind of even though we're straying from the Oscars in a way this year, we're still talking a lot about the Oscars. Here's my challenge for you. Do you remember what won Best Picture last year?
Yes, it's Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And in hindsight, I was just curious, do you remember what we predicted to win?
Was it not Everything Everywhere
It
All
was.
at Once? That's what I thought. That
Yes.
was kind of the January juggernaut that just kept going. A movie that I think deserved everything that it got, but I was very surprised because of its release in January. That matters in Oscars. Like if your movie comes out like in January or at the end of December, even like that can kind of put you in a shaky. But it stayed and it did the thing.
It certainly did. So yeah, what I was trying to get at by asking that line of questioning was like, I don't know that we actually evaluated the previous year how we did on our picks, but I did listen back a little bit.
What?
Yeah, and we did pretty well.
I
I'll say
figured.
that. I don't think we missed on many in terms of what we thought would win, but we did pick Everything Everywhere all at once to win.
No, last year was relatively locked. There were some like questionable things like whether like Brendan Fraser was gonna win with how like the whale kind of had like negative, like no one liked the movie, but they like thought the performance was good. So I thought that made that kind of an iffy, is he gonna win? And he did. And it's kind of funny this year is like kind of shaping up to even more like we kind of know what's gonna happen Oscars.
Yeah, it's definitely a year where I feel like even though there's a lot of strong movies and there's a lot of strong performances, I think most people have a pretty decent sense of what will win. And obviously, we'll give our predictions again this year. But essentially, for our format for this year's best movies, we're going to start just with all the things we liked and then parse it down to things that were nominated and then pick what we think will win and what could win. Or maybe like what should win is rather the better question.
Mm-hmm.
So, starting then, as we dive into the best movies of 2023, Fred, our first category is for your favorite supporting actor.
Mm-hmm. I do feel I love supporting actor because this is, and they do it with supporting actress more, but I feel like this is where they have fun with performances more than anything. There was, as always, I have like a list that is huge, but I'm just going to throw out a few names and we can start talking that were not nominated. One big one that I think we'll both agree on was Glenn Howerton
Yes.
in Blackberry. The other one that I think no one saw, but I thought was a good supporting was Kiefer Sutherland in The Caine Mutiny.
Oh.
And then another one, and I have some more generic picks that I'm going to throw it to you before I get to those. I really thought Richard Kind was bringing some heat in Beau Was Afraid. I thought he was kind of scary.
Yes.
And Richard Kind is never scary.
No, he's not. He's always very neurotic. Yeah, but he was very good in Beau Was Afraid. Your mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like I was getting scolded.
Yes, I know. But I do like your picks of who you think should have been nominated this year because I think, yeah, Glenn Howerton and Blackberry, that was the first time I felt like he was not just being a like parody of this type of character. He was embodying it and he was committing all the way in. And it never felt like it was still funny, but it was never like he's like, haha, you're in on the joke with me. It's like, no, this is just who this guy is. And you take him at face value.
Yeah, he's weaponizing all the Dennis stuff and just putting it into a fully formed character. And it was great to see. I was kind of bummed Blackberry didn't get any love that it deserved. But I mean, probably because it's a movie about a product and there's been a bunch of those.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing. And also him just being the It's Always Sunny guy. Maybe people didn't take it seriously, but Blackberry was big. I loved it.
I know. It was great. I mean, it was a first outing for the director, Matt Johnson, too, in terms of a feature length film, I'm pretty sure. And I thought he did great. So it's I should say it's maybe like his breakthrough directing, and he also acted in it too. So that was
He's
kinda,
very good in the movie too.
yeah, he was. He played that character very well. But yeah, I think hopefully something that we do see more of out of both of those guys going forward. Did you have any thoughts then on some of the nominated roles that you liked?
I would say that I think they definitely pick good ones. I know, if we're talking supporting, the big thing is going to be RDJ. I did think that performance was great, but it's also kind of the nomination / win where, like, me picking Black Mirror to be on my list, it's kind of like, it's just good to have Robert Downey Jr. acting in movies and not be Iron Man. Like, I think there's a lot of that going for that role, but it is like a very good performance. It wasn't nominated, but I had to add in, and my man doesn't need any more medals, but I think Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon is really good.
Yes.
And it's kind of hard because, like, De Niro, when he's always De Niro, I thought this was actually like, oh, this is something new and very scary.
Yeah. I thought he was very good in that. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., just seeing him do like anything that feels like an original role, you're always like, oh, why did he spend so long doing Marvel? But that was how he even got back here, right? 'Cause I think a lot of people were ready to bury him after all of his drug issues, and other than Shane Black calling him in for some really good juicy roles that he knew he was capable of. But yeah, I mean, he's somebody who hit the straight and narrow, and it's like, yeah, him doing stuff like this proves like, oh, he's probably one of the best actors of our generation, right?
Yeah. Who are some guys you liked off of the list?
So I think, well, I guess I realized I didn't even add some of the ones I thought were my favorites of the year overall. I mean, I liked Benny Safdie in Oppenheimer as well. So speaking about that, but I don't know why he worked for me, but it was just fun. I don't know. I thought he was such a good foil to Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, he's doing like a bigger character with an accent, but also I'm seeing that, like, I'm a smart bro who knows things. And like that's the thing that it like does kind of like wear thin with me with Benny Safdie, but he's putting it in that performance like he does in his performance in The Curse. And like this guy is like kind of a cocky asshole, but it's a great performance. I did the Oppenheimer rewatch last night.
Oh,
yes.
And I'm excited to hear your overall thoughts on the movie when we get to the best movie of the year, best picture category. And then I also wanted to call out in the movie Anatomy of a Fall is the son.
Yeah.
It was played by, I think his name is Milo Machado Granye. And a great first kind of like breakthrough role for him, because I thought he was doing so much work there. And it was just, I don't know, he was really selling it to the nines and carrying so much of the emotional weight of that movie.
Is he actually blind?
I think, I haven't looked it up yet, but I want to say he is somewhat blind, if he's not completely blind.
Okay. Just because the character's blind in the movie, and I just wasn't sure if that was like a performance thing or if he was actually blind.
Yeah, I think, just looking it up here, not actually blind.
Okay. So that just adds another layer. Like, I think performing, like being blind, if you're not blind, that's hard.
Yeah. And I think that's a difficult role to play, is playing somebody who is blind. I think something Charlie Cox does very well as Daredevil as well, even though he's sort of like can see because of the superpowers. But I think he portrays what a blind person, kind of like how they would behave, and not like Ben Affleck, where it's like still kind of just like looking like he doesn't know where things are. It's very weird.
Yeah, I think that is a good performance. Like him in the, courtroom scenes are pretty intense.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I would say then for the nominated supporting roles, then I really liked, Downey, obviously. I mean, we could talk forever about De Niro. I'm going to call out Mark Ruffalo, though, in Poor Things, because it's borderline a hammy performance, but God, it's like the great ham you get from a deli,
Yeah.
not the ham that you buy like Oscar Mayer,
And then he's playing a ham, like this, like, bachelor, he is a bachelor, but like he's definitely just like this pompous, like up his own butt guy.
Yes, 100%. And it's just, I don't know. It was a performance I loved. I was so surprised because it was also kind of asking him to do things different than what he had been doing as the Hulk, right? It's like, it's funny that we're talking about two guys who are very prominent members of like this previous like Avengers like arc and all this, but here they are doing these very like challenging roles of like where they're kind of like conniving like men, and you sort of realize, oh yeah, they're not just like the charming smart dudes like, oh, I can do it all. They're sort of like, actually no, you can play very good assholes. I mean, hard not to talk about Ryan Gosling though too.
Definitely.
I think there's some issues with the nomination structure in all of Barbie. The fact that he was given that, but
I think that the Oscars just need to adapt the Golden Globe thing. I don't like that they combine comedy and musical, but I think they need to separate comedy from the drama just because it's not comedic roles rarely get nominated.
right.
So I think I would love it if there was a comedy thing, and that would just open up for more awards. That's why it worked out nice with the Golden Globes with Best Actress, because Emma Stone got comedic and Lily Gladstone got dramatic. Everyone got something.
Right.
In drama, it's a little harder because now you're like comparing, comedic performances, dramatic performances.
Right. It's like trying to compare a steak dinner versus like sushi. It's like, it's not the same type of thing that you're trying to do. It's a totally different craft, totally different way of making food. So it's like, why would you do the same thing? I totally agree with you there. I think I would love it, but I don't love the Golden Globes. But the category structure is fascinating. So who do you think should win? We'll say that first.
I think it can and should be RDJ. I would have liked, because Charles Melton didn't get the Oscar nom, did he? He just got the Globe and the SAG.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And I think the Independent Spirit, maybe.
So, yeah, if we're going to go, I might as well list all the nominees, right? There's really no reason not to. I mean, again, we're still talking about all the best, our favorites of the year, but I think we can still kind of lean into the fact that there is an Oscars episode. The actors in a supporting role are Sterling K. Brown, Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Gosling, Mark Ruffalo.
Okay. Yeah, I really think I would have put Charles Melton in there. I thought he was fabulous in May December, a movie I didn't love, but his scene on the roof with his son, I think, is one of the best like dramatic scenes in a movie this year. And I think that was kind of a snub, but who I think will win, I think it's going to be RDJ, and I'm fine with that. Just don't thank Mel Gibson in your Oscar speech.
Yeah, that would be not good. Did you thank him in like a Golden Globe?
He did in one of them, which, like, I get kind of, because he is the guy that did support him and like take care of him when he was in his drug stuff. But like, bro, like, Mel's got some mental issues. You shouldn't be, praising him. Like,
yeah,
even if he did help you at that time, which I'm sure he did.
There's a weird industry, I think, thing where people are really wanting to stick with Mel Gibson. And I think the public is kind of telling them, like, we don't want more of this guy.
Yeah, you literally made a John Wick show that no one wanted to watch because Mel Gibson was on it.
Right. Yeah, it's just silly. Yeah, I think I agree, though, in terms of, like, who's going to win. It's probably going to be Robert Downey Jr., and I think deservedly.
It's going to be a career win, and it's a role that deserves it, so why not?
Yeah, for sure. I think if for should win, I think I might edge Ruffalo, because I really liked that performance. I don't know. I thought it was just, every time he was on screen, he had something different to bring, and he was just, especially when he's just crying outside the window, I was cracking up. So I'm like, this is so over the top, but it's exactly what the movie is asking him to do, and I felt like he was just bringing it. But I will not be upset when Robert Downey Jr. comes
Definitely. Home. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Let's go on to supporting actress. What were some roles you liked overall? We can bounce back and forth before we get even to the nominations. Unless there were nominated roles that you were like, this was the one.
This one is, I think, this person's going to win and deserves to win, and they're my pick, is Joy Divine Randolph in The Holdovers. She conveys warmth yet like a cold sad past at the same time. Like there's like warmth and I also feel bad for her situation with her son and her past. I think just the scenes with her and
Paul Giamatti.
why can't I fucking think of Paul Giamatti's name right now? The scenes of her and Paul Giamatti where they're just like sharing scotch in the basement of the school, you know.
Yeah.
I just love those scenes. So that's who I want to win and who will probably win. I'll throw out some other names. I thought Julianne Moore in May December was another great performance. I don't know her name, but I thought the mom in Killers of the Flower Moon was another kind of smaller, good performance. She's the one who passes on kind of in the seventh film who sees the owl.
Oh,
And has the vision.
Right.
She was also in Echo for a bit.
I was gonna say, and I was trying to remember if she even showed up in Reservation Dogs too.
She did not. I don't think.
No, you might be right. Yeah, I don't know if she made it in there, but yeah, she was great in Echo for sure, and also yeah, and she's very good in Killers of the Flower Moon. Her name is Tantu Cardinal.
That is it. I could not think of it. The last two I'll throw out. Tracy Ellis Ross in American Fiction. That's doing a lot with a little screen time, and she looms in the story, I think, a bit. Like maybe towards the end, you kind of forget a little about her, but I think her in that movie is big. The last one I have is Patti LuPone in Beau is Afraid. Yeah, I think that is kind of. I love him hiring a like Broadway person to like crescendo this madness at the end and just kind of give you like a theatrical performance.
Yeah, she was great in that. I like everything you said about Divine Joy Randolph because I think I think she hits it. She's one of my favorites of the year, deserves to win, and probably will win. And I think it's a slam dunk.
She's like the most slam dunk of the performances.
I think you're right. Yeah, for sure. Because I think the only other performances I noted here, and I did like Julianne Moore in May December. Thought she was pretty good. They
need more hot dogs.
They did. Just a little smidge more. I did like America Ferrera in Barbie. I thought, even though I know that was a big campaign push, but I think it kind of balances out the Gosling supporting actor role where you do at least have one of the women who really made that movie. And she's the heart of that movie, I think. You know, as much as, like Margot Robbie obviously is Barbie herself, it doesn't work if you don't have America. It's just for that one speech.
I think I do love that, like, in a movie like this where you have like an exciting world, you want to have that character that is relatable and kind of your conduit as the person experiencing Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That's an example. I feel like I love how like we get like the little girl and she's kind of a shit like in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, is this our conduit? And then it's like, no, really, it's the mom who we're following. It was just kind of nice as like, people's in our 30s. Like they didn't have it as like a teenager or a kid,
Right.
like they know the audience is like, it's for, kids, but it's more like our age.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think she did such a good job of being like, I am the millennial woman who very much embodies all the little girls who are probably watching this now, growing up and like have kids. And it's like, oh yeah, I had Barbies. Here's my feelings on it. And it's just like, I don't know. It was a good performance. The one that didn't get nominated that I really liked too was Tilda Swinton in The Killer.
Yes.
And she plays one of the assassins that takes out tries to take out Michael Fassbender's fiance or girlfriend. And just the whole scene where they're sitting down and she's at like her favorite restaurant.
And her like flight of whiskey.
Yeah. And it's just, I love the whole conversation where she knows like this is the last meal I'm ever going to have, last drinks I'm ever going to have. Because I'm not making it out of here. I mean, The Killer overall, I think, got overlooked like
so much.
So many Netflix things. It's there and gone the next day,
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, I was like, man, what a magnetic performance, though, she had on screen. And it just like, again, probably doing the same thing as like Tracy Ellis Ross, who was another role. I was almost too sad it was so small because I would have loved to see more of her in that movie.
Sure.
But you had to have that character's arc end where it did. But it's yeah, I thought it was another one where I'm like, man, I think we got just enough of her in that, and I really enjoyed it. All right, so I know we both kind of agreed already on Divine Joy Randolph, but just to list the nominees for actress in a supporting role, we had Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks in The Color Purple. She was very good. I didn't get to talk about her at all, but I thought she did a fantastic job. She's someone I would keep an eye on. America Ferrera in Barbie, as we talked about. Jodie Foster in Naiad, which I watched it like after True Detective this time, and that was like, that's when you really appreciate a performance when you're comparing them. And then Divine Joy Randolph in The Holdovers. I don't know. It was. Did you like any of those other ones that we didn't?
I have yet to see Naiad or The Color Purple. Color Purple, I'm excited for because I like musicals, and that's on HBO Max now, right? I think so.
It was enjoyable. I had never seen the original, so I was like, oh, what a story! But I do want to watch the original now too after that because that's the Spielberg version.
Yeah, whoopee.
Yeah. So let's go on to lead actor. So let's start again. What were some of the performances by a lead actor that you enjoyed the most?
So again, like mine are pretty pitched to the Oscars. Other than, I mean, the guy always brings it. But I thought Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, he did a lot of acting in there, so I have him on there. I would be very happy if Paul Giamatti wins. I don't think he's going to. I do truly think Cillian Murphy was like the performance because it's just like a classic Hollywood thing of this is a movie about one person and this story, and you have to be able to put all that on your shoulders. And you know, he's a little slight guy. He puts all that on his shoulders. And I kind of like the mania in his face at times, like when he's playing this character. And then I have just Jeffrey Wright, and I do have Leo on here for Killers of the Flower Moon, a role that I don't want to give an award because it's kind of like, you know, a character who makes horrible decisions, but I think it's more about the producing side that I want to give him an award for looking at the story, hearing from the ancestors of the character, and being like, we're not going to do a movie about like the founding of the FBI. We're going to do a movie about this person and this relationship, and we're going to, you know, rewrite the whole thing.
Yes.
I think him being instrumental in that approach and then willing to kind of play this despicable character who I do feel for at times because he's such an idiot and like is being taken advantage of, but in no ways is innocent. And I think that's a hard role to play. Like, again, like, I don't know if like that's the performance I want to give an Oscar to because it is. And maybe that's not a thing. That's not a way you should approach it. You know, like if people are playing a, you know, despicable person really well, like, that should be just as adequate to win an award, but still I'd feel a little weird about it. But I don't know. Those are the ones that stuck with me. Again, I would say Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction. He's always solid, but I'd never really seen him lead a film like that before, and he does. He leads it.
No, he does. I was surprised to see him pop up in Rusk too, or Rustin. I'm sorry, not Rust. Rusk is a street that's nearby. Rustin is the name of the movie, which we'll be talking about shortly. Or actually, no, with this category, because we do have Coleman Domingo, who was nominated for lead actor. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright, I think leading a movie like American Fiction, that was also one of my favorite performances too. I thought he was great. I think he does something so, I don't know. It feels like he's kind of got like the exact type of like character down that he was playing, of like, he's a very like well-spoken, sort of seems like kind of like a high society guy. And you almost have to see a movie like the James Bond movies like Casino Royale or No Time to Die to really kind of get like what he's doing differently with Felix Leiter as an FBI agent, and then versus like this guy who's very like, I'll drink a glass of wine and then I will tell you all about why fiction should be the topic thing, you know.
Or I like that he has scenes in the movie where he's like playing like a stereotypical criminal, like black person who's like on the run. And those scenes are really played with great humor, but also is kind of funny because like growing up, I seen Jeffrey Wright in so many like 90s like action movies when he was still coming up, like Shaft, where he's playing that kind of stereotypical role. So it was great to see him kind of like go into that for like comedic purposes.
Yeah. Well, and he played it so well of like not understanding even like what the stereotype should be. He like played like the very cartoon version of that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've seen you do this type of character so many times because that's just how it was in Hollywood.
Right. But you mentioned Paul Giamatti too. And obviously these are both nominated roles. We'll talk about the nominees when we give our predictions here. But I mean, I thought this was one of his best performances. I loved him in that movie. The Holdovers, I think one is a sleeper movie that I just was really, really a fan of. And I caught it at the right time. We watched it on Christmas Eve, and it's a Christmas movie, and it just like hit all the right notes for what I wanted for that moment. But I talked about The Killer before. I did throw Michael Fassbender. I kind of just I like Fassbender a lot. But I don't know. That was kind of the right role for him though too.
Yeah, what's cool with him in that movie is like it's his narration, his actions kind of contradicting each other.
Yes.
And just like I mean that's in the performance as well as the writing, but that was my favorite part about that character where he'll be like, never do this, and then you see him do it. Like,
right.
I just love those beats.
I know. I think his narration does so much work in that movie too.
I'd give him best yoga.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
That bend in the beginning, I always try to like recreate that in the morning. I can never get as close.
It just takes a lot of practice.
I did play Hitman, and I was in like a room with the sniper, and I like pulled up my phone Spotify and started playing the Smiths.
Oh, God, the music. There's two different types of music in this movie, and man, the amount of Smiths, it's almost too much. Even if somebody like kind of enjoys it, I'm just like, okay, can we maybe get some different soundtrack here? But I did agree on DiCaprio too. Not a role that I would have awarded, but he never gives in on a performance. He's one of like those classic Hollywood actors where it's like when you hire him into a role, you know he's going to give you 100% every single time, every single second. And I think nothing better than I can think of that in is like with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and 4 whiskey sours.
That's the one that I can't pay him more that I wish he would have gotten nominated for, because that scene where he just like freaks out in his trailer is just so good.
So, and it's like, come on, how many actors knew that like they've had moments like that? It's like, what's wrong with you?
That's me after an improv show.
It's like, what's wrong with you?
He had 2 show drinks before he should have had one.
It's just one. I also threw in Joaquin Phoenix though for Beau is Afraid, just because, not because he's just Joaquin Phoenix, but I feel like it's watching roles like that, and I always keep seeing clips of like Joker come up because people have to. But when you look at all the different stuff he's done across his career, and I just talked about with Leo, I'm like, has he ever phoned one in, like even for a moment? Like, no, he's all the way in every single time. He's kind of like, I don't know. He's got like a Daniel Day-Lewis, almost too much that end, but but I just am like, man, he really embodies a neurotic guy. So the nominees here are Bradley Cooper in Maestro, Coleman Domingo in Rustin, not Rusk, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction. So who do you think should win and who will win?
I think it should be Cillian Murphy, but there's that chance of the Giamatti upset. Yeah. I think it's like that's where it's at right now.
It does feel that way. I think I would give the award to Giamatti. I think that's one of the best I've seen from him. Even more so than he win for Sideways?
I don't know if he won. I know he was at least nominated.
Yeah, which I think is one of his other great roles. But this was just, I don't know. You could feel every moment with him. It was so good. But I do think, Murphy's going to pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now the next one we'll move on to is the best lead actress. So what were some of your favorites from the year?
Well, again, like I'm pretty much mirroring close to the Oscars. The two kind of big standout performances. Actually, no, I'm gonna say all four of these are kind of. I have four standout and then a weird Fred choice. I'll just go through them. Lily Gladstone,
Yep.
Emma Stone. Got to get both the Stones in there.
Stone time.
Greta Lee and Sandra Huller, I think, are all four of the powerhouse female performances. I think all nominated for the Oscar. We'll see. Oh, I'm getting a face. We'll find out later. And then I'm gonna throw out my Fred choice, which is Sophie Wilde and "Talk to Me."
Ooh, that was the lead.
Yes,
Nice.
I think she's really great. She has to do like weird, like demonic performance stuff, and she also has big dramatic scenes, and she's also kind of funny in the movie. She does a lot.
I love that pick. That was, I mean, I can't remember if I'm going to talk about this movie later or not, but if we don't talk about Talk to Me,
It's gonna come up again.
well, it'll come up again. But yeah, she was great. I thought that was another one of like, that's an actress I could see. You know, they're in a movie, like a horror movie now, and like a lot of people are like, oh, that's interesting. And then it's going to be like years later and they're going to be doing something bigger. And you're like, can you believe they were in this horror movie? It's kind of like Anya Taylor-Joy, right? Like you're like, oh, could you believe she was in The Witch like before? And it's like, yeah, that's how these people get found. That's how Fred and I, we peg people early on. We're like, gonna remember this fucking deep voice dude from The Witch.
Yeah, but I like it on the rewatchables. They call that getting season tickets on someone.
Oh,
Such a
like that.
rewatchables thing to say.
But honestly, I kind of love it. That's a great bit.
I always say that's when I buy my stock. That's when I bought my stock.
Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, for sure was like an Anya Taylor-Joy. But yeah, Sophie Wilde, I could definitely see that. I'll throw in from the lead actress performances, Sandra Huller. Did you say her?
I said her.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And honestly, like if you ask for what, I mean, if Huller's own initiatives, I'm going to say either.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
I do think she was doing the better work in Anatomy of a Fall because that was a three-dimensional role up and down the board, speaking multiple languages and just having to present so many different emotions and fronts. But yeah, her performance in Zone of Interest was also very frightening and very good. Greta Lee, I also did have as one of my favorite performances, as well as Margot Robbie. I don't know that's her best role, but I was like, but kind of speaking as like America Ferrera was the heart of that movie. I mean, Margot Robbie, I think she has to be the bloodline, and she was. And it's like that movie doesn't work if she's not good.
Yeah, and I honestly think her Harley Quinn work is very indebted to her Barbie role. I think those characters have similar vibes, and I'm not discounting the performance. I'm saying like that was kind of practice because there is this aloofness and not aware of what everyone else's norm is.
Yeah.
To that performance. And it's more when she goes to the real world. But I was just like, I see a lot of like that work you put in on Harley Quinn's paying off for like this other performance.
Yeah. It's actually true though. I mean, you can really see, I think she gets how to play. I don't know. And maybe it's something to her credit that it's almost like she's almost more of a character actor than I think like your traditional, like, I don't know. She's closer to Meryl Streep. I'm not saying she's Meryl Streep, but she's closer to Meryl Streep than she is to like, I don't even know who you would.
Sigourney Weaver?
Maybe. That's maybe the right way to put it. Somebody who's done different roles, but maybe not to various degrees of success. So the nominees, and this is why I wanted to maybe hold my tongue a little bit on the Greta Lee stuff. She was not nominated. The nominees for actress in a lead role were Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Huller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. I would have tossed I like Carey Mulligan a lot. I think she was very good in Maestro. That's not her best performance I've seen.
No, it's also a performance we've seen before. This kind of thing. She does have like there's that moment where she's very sick and she has like the coughing and it stops and she kind of like it's like the person's talking and she kind of has to do that like no, go ahead, keep talking. I think we've all been in that position with like people who are sick and they're trying to keep it normal, and then they're kind of affected. You know, like
Right.
that scene, like I get that, but yeah, you know,
I mean, I think for Greta Lee is really the person we should be talking about there, because it's like there is a lot for somebody who it's like you've seen in stuff before. And I know we'll talk about this by the nature of how I recorded for these couple episodes coming up for our podcast. We talked a lot about like Natasha Lyonne in Russian Doll, and I was thinking about Greta Lee, and I was sort of like, it's a fun performance, but then you see her in this, and you're like, in Past Lives, and you're like, whoa, she's conveying so much with every look she's giving this guy, with every look she's giving her husband, with every response. It's just like you can sense the stone like solid like resolve in her, and just the torment of like, what if you know, it's like,
and there's just not enough room. But honestly, like I think all three of the main performances are top notch in that. Like
yeah.
I think the two main performances got love, like critically, not so much in the Oscars apparently. I think it's Joe Magaro as the husband is like silently doing really good work in that movie, because it's like kind of a lot of those scenes are all on his face.
oh yeah,
Fun fact, you know, that's he's Silvio in Many Saints of Newark.
that's a movie I still need to see. I don't know why.
He's the guy who's doing the big Silvio play.
Oh my god, him as Silvio would be very good though. Now I'm kind of excited to watch that, knowing that he's going to be in it. But he's every look, and you can tell so much of the direction in that movie is very much not about the words that are being said, but the looks on everyone's faces of like, what an awkward situation sitting with this guy who you know is in love with your wife. What an awkward situation being here with a married couple that you know is happy, and you are potentially breaking their home by being there.
Right.
And like, and you have the woman in the middle of this, the triangle, who is just, you know, she's not going to leave her husband. Like, she has made that very clear. But at the same end, you are just like seeing every part of her calculating everything of like, what if I did just run off with this guy?
It kind of reminded me a lot of Everything Everywhere All at Once, because there's a lot of dwelling in like the what ifs of like your life, whereas like this movie's very much like the conversational, like more character version of it. But I thought of that right away when I was watching it. This is kind of taking that similar theme, but like focusing it and making it more intimate. And I thought that was good.
Yeah, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about Celine Song when we get to directors, which is going to be next. Not to segue out, but I definitely think that her playwright or her theater background played a lot, because this
Very
proceeds
theatrical.
like a play, like a theater play. So, should win, will win. I think this one also, well, I shouldn't say it's a slam dunk. What do you think?
For lead actress, I think it should be a slam dunk, Lily Gladstone. But it's gonna be fair if it goes to Emma Stone. I'm fine with that. Yeah. I'm just going off of Emma Stone's got one.
Yeah, I think that ultimate, and I hate the politicking of the Oscars, but that comes into play. I also still think it belongs to Lily Gladstone outright by a hair.
Oh yeah, that's how I feel. It's very close, but I feel like, I don't know. I still think it's Lily Gladstone, and I'd be happy either way. And I think this is not my awful joke, but I think it was from like The Big Picture. They were like, yeah, if I don't know if after watching The Curse, I need to see Emma Stone win an award over Lily Gladstone. I just watched a whole show about white people taking things away from indigenous people.
Yeah, that's. But I don't know if there's going to be any threat of that. There might be, and I think it's going to be difficult, because I think with some of the lead actress, I think this is the most controversial category, because I think there were so many strong female lead performances all around this year. And we didn't even talk about Annette Bening, who
I didn't see Nyad.
I saw Nyad. She's very good. I hope she's not home to come home with a statue, because it was one of her better ones recently, and she's still the third best in my book, like, or even maybe fourth best. And that tells you how stacked it is. I think the theme of this year of movies is that the limitations of categories of like the numbers are really hurting a lot of great things that happened. Like, I don't think a movie like Poor Things in another year is running away with it. This year, you're going against Marty, you're going against Nolan, you're going against a couple of upstarts. It's like,
well, I always think about a movie that we're not going to talk about this episode that I really liked, that in a slow Oscar year would have had some awards or nominations, I should say. Air came out this year, which I thought was super solid, really well acted, got a lot of stuff. There's just no room for Air.
Yeah.
Like, there's just too much.
There's no room for Air. I think the only one is just the lead actress category. I think that was this one and the very next one here, directing. So let's dive into some of the controversies and favorite directing of the year. Where would you start?
So for me, this is definitely where I would have given like a nomination for Greta Gerwig, just like creating the Barbie world and making it tangible and kind of like, I know Margot Robbie was kind of a big part of like the development. Yeah. But I think that was a big one that I was surprised was not awarded, right? She didn't get nominated.
She did not.
So the other one that I have on here for directors, I really do think Zone of Interest was really well directed. Oppie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Beau's Afraid, and then the Philip brothers, Talk to Me.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So pretty much a lot of the ones that were nominated, but I would say like Barbie wasn't my favorite movie, but if I was going to give it any noms or awards, it would have been lead actress Margot Robbie and best director Greta Gerwig. Those would be the two, and maybe a screenplay, but like those are the ones that I was like, that would be big to win.
Yeah, I don't know if we have screenplay in our categories this year.
No, we won't talk about screenplays, but I'm just saying that screenplay is solid.
No, it is, and it's very good because I think we should call it out. I think Barbie was such a brilliantly written movie. I think that's really what got to. I'm like, you look at all the everything trickles down from, and the fact that Greta Gerwig wrote that with Noah Baumbach, it's like you can tell, like it's so much of them into it. I think it felt like the culmination of so much of the stuff they work on separately, but then you bring them together, and it feels like they balanced each other out very well. Like, you don't have to love Barbie to recognize it was still a very well written and well directed movie. I also agree, Greta Gerwig. I'm not upset the way that everybody else is that she didn't get best director, but it also sort of feels like I have a tough time. It's like, where do you make room? Because it's hard to talk about without knowing the
hit them with us.
So let's just talk about the nominees. I can talk about a little more of my favorite directors too, but it was Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, which is Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. There's not a lot of room. I'm not going to show my hand too much. I'm not kicking Justine Triet out for Anatomy of a Fall. It's like, if that's if you have a problem with that one, I don't think you've seen the movie. Like, is my thing, because we were just talking, I think, a day or two ago about film schools and like film like classes and like learning about film, and I'm like, everything I've learned about film, I'm like, I saw so much of the technique that I love in a movie like that. So it's one of my favorites of the year. Yorgos Lanthimos, still, Poor Things is such a crazily looking movie, and you need somebody to be able to pull that together. Christopher Nolan, it's like the man has been doing great work for 2 decades now.
I'm just like, this is, biopic, this is that. Let's just give him the medals, and then we can kind of dispense with Nolan as stuff for a while, I feel like, in the award sphere.
Sure. It's like, and just let him chase all these weird projects like Tenet.
Yeah.
The only other 2 that I was going to mention this time is not Alex Garland. It's Alexander Payne for Holdovers. I really love the look of Holdovers.
The aesthetic, like the 70s vibe.
Oh, just beautiful.
It looks like a Fleet Foxes song.
What?
Have you ever listened to Fleet Foxes?
No.
Oh, listen to a Fleet Foxes song and you'll be like, this sounds like the Holdovers.
Okay, if you say so. I will definitely have to give it a listen. And then Celine's song for Past Lives, I thought, again, very theatrical. I mean, I hope maybe she does a stage adaptation because I think it'd be great. Probably will get a Tony for that. But
For sure.
I thought, what a great first outing for somebody to give. And I love kind of like getting season tickets, right? That's the idea.
Yeah. I'm excited for her, as she said, a James L. Brooks inspired project that she's doing next.
Oh, that's cool. Because I think you look at the Oscars and the people who do breakthrough, like a Jordan Peele or Greta Gerwig when she first did like Lady Bird, like that's when you kind of get pigeonholed.
Mm-hmm.
So, who of the nominees then would you think should win, and who will win?
I would, and I think it should go to Oppenheimer, just because I do think this is like, it feels like all the Nolan movies kind of leading up to this. And like, I feel if he didn't win for this, he would end up winning for something later that doesn't make sense, because that's how the Oscars work. I feel like this just kind of makes the most sense. It was good. It was an amazing thing to see. I watched my 4K last night, and it feels like not a lot of other movies. I'm definitely pro the idea of, I would be happy with the Yorgos Lanthimos one. I do feel like the small upset that could happen is I could see Zone of Interest coming in and either taking a directing or a Best Picture nod, because it has kind of picked up a lot of speed recently. And it's because it's a movie about the Holocaust, but also kind of very much about politics today. And like, I feel I see very much of the kind of the Israel-Palestine thing going on right now. A lot of atrocities going on while people are kind of like keeping their heads down.
Yep.
Was a theme that like I saw in Zone of Interest, which is about a different atrocity, and just kind of seeing a parallel of a period piece and seeing it so resonant today. Just that was kind of I'm not gonna say magical, but put the hair on the back of my neck, because it just is like we're in a it's like a cyclical process of history, history repeats itself, as they say.
I mean, yeah, we're not here to get political and all that, but I think you just have to look around, and a lot of the usual suspects in countries, there's a lot of that stuff festering up in the same places that had to get snuffed out almost 80 years ago. It's like, maybe we just need to watch it. Yeah, I think there's a lot with this movie, as much as I do think it's great, and I will get into it in a little bit too, a little bit deeper, but maybe this is the time to litigate it too and talk about, there is a reason I think they are putting a focus on this movie. I think a lot of people have recognized this is a movie people should be seeing to kind of see the parallels. Exactly as you're saying. So I do agree with that. And I mean, and on top of that, I do think it is a very beautifully shot movie.
Mm-hmm. It's very much like Under the Skin, like kind of that similar vibe. I rewatched that recently, and Jonathan Glazer, like it's so weird. His first movie is kind of like this, like crime thing, but it definitely has those weirder vibes to it. It's pretty much just like Ben Kingsley playing like the Ralph Fiennes character in Bruges, showing up at your door years later after you've been out of the business, is like the first movie. But Under the Skin, that's the one with Scarlett Johansson where she plays like an alien or a robot from another wherever, and she's kind of like kidnapping these men in Scotland. Just the way that movie was shot, and then seeing the story and him just taking the same stylistic choices, like the use of color, the use of like the zoom ins, and the use of sound. As much as like I would have been intense to be in a movie theater with this movie, I think the audio and the sound design in this movie is haunting and really well done.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the one reason I wouldn't give him the directing nod, I think some of the stuff was a little over the top. The one thing specifically is I did see this in a movie theater, and that opening that lasts for like 3 minutes of just ambient noise. I'm like, am I in a sound tank? Like, it was so much to a point where people were looking around like, did the movie cut off?
And I just love that stuff. Like, I get that is kind of over the top, or it could be pompous, but like, I like it when a movie makes me like, puts me on edge and I'm on my toes.
Yes, which he definitely does do. I mean, I liked Justine Triet a lot. I really liked Anatomy of a Fall. Like I said, I'm showing my cards already, but I was a huge fan of that movie. I think so much of what I loved about film growing up and things that I love to see in film is seeing something like that that is so reliant on, like, it's like almost like you have unreliable narrators that you're not even sure are unreliable. You just don't know, and you live so much in the gray, kind of like in Anatomy or in Zone of Interest, where you are kind of stuck in the moment of trying to like what am I feeling? What am I seeing? I don't know. I just love the performances and the emotional weight that is given to every character in that movie. I think Sandra Huller, similar, both these movies, just doing great work with whatever she's being asked to do. I mean, she's hopefully somebody we're going to keep seeing time and again here coming forward. But it's Chris Nolan time, baby.
Yep, that's the thing.
That's who's going to win. I liked Oppenheimer a lot. I think you said everything too about it, and we'll talk about it more when we talk about favorite movies of the year. But you could argue this is maybe number one for him. I don't know. We'll talk, but he's getting. I think he's getting that director.
Yeah,
award.
I think he's gonna win. I only bring up Zone of Interest because of last year and like with what happened with what was the World War One movie?
Oh,
All Quiet on the Western
Oh
Front.
yeah.
And I just like I was like I hate how that movie was shoved down our throat, and I feel like Zone of Interest had like the duality of like modern time, what's happening now, more than that movie. So that's why I was more happy with this movie kind of coming out of nowhere versus All Quiet on the Western Front. I was like, get out of here.
I know.
But yeah, it's Nolan's time, and I'm here for it. It's gonna make for a boring Oscars, but hey.
Yeah, I think it's not somebody who's never put in the work. I think the one thing I can say about Christopher Nolan, since we're speaking specifically to him right now, I think he's been one of the champions of keeping theaters alive, and he's done everything in his power to try and make that happen. And I'm like, and him like applauding even like Barbie and like everything Greta Gerwig was doing. I'm like, he's saying and doing the right thing. He's not a bad person.
Right.
He kind of deserves this award. So I think from a personal standpoint as well as a technical standpoint. So oof, I'm getting like warm.
So I'll just say a big category that they talk about. There's been a lot of documentary films this year.
Yes.
Some got nominated. I didn't see any. Did you see any?
I saw 3 documentaries that I can really speak of off the top of my head. We watch them every now and again. One that was not nominated is called BS High. Are you familiar with this one?
I am not.
So it's the story of a high school called Bishop Sycamore. And that's kind of the idea of the whole thing. It's not a real high school. It's not a real place. It was the manufacturing of basically a scam artist, essentially, who brought these kids together who were not actual high school players. They were guys who either were booted from their high school teams or weren't quite good enough to make it in college / get to the NFL. So he brought these kids together, made up this whole front of like they are like this like premier high school in the nation. They have all the best players and all that. And he like pulled these kids together and like run through them with this. And they really were kind of not aware of what was happening. And he ended up scamming so many people into the point where they got to play the actual #1 high school in the country on ESPN. And these kids were so undertrained, under like everything. Like they were just undersized, everything. They just got destroyed. Like kids were literally getting hurt out on the field.
Oh, geez.
And it's this horrible, horrible thing. And all people could ask is like, how did these guys get here? Like they clearly are, there's something wrong. And then all these crazy stories came out about it. And so this whole documentary was kind of detailing how he pulled off this scam. They got the actual head coach, the guy who pulled this off, to be in the documentary and talk about how he did everything. But he's still like sticking to his guns. Like after all of it, he's like, we're legit. I don't know what you guys are talking about. We're going to be back. And it's like, it's just this weird dude he's living a totally different reality than everyone else in the world. Did not get nominated, but it was super fascinating because the story is like too crazy to believe is true.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the other 2, and so I'll list the nominees real quickly here because I'll just talk about a couple of them that I watched. It was Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, 4 Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, and 20 Days in Mariupol. So we'll talk about the Eternal Memory very quickly. It's about a man who has, I think it's Alzheimer's, and so he's like losing his memory, or it's onset dementia. And so, I mean, he's losing his memory, and so his wife is like working with him to like. He was a journalist during Pinochet's reign in Chile, which if we were talking about cinematography, we would be talking about El Cunde,
Yeah.
which is the same story. It's literally about Pinochet, right? That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm not thinking of somebody else, am I? Yeah, so it's literally about him covering, like, he was a journalist covering Pinochet's regime in Chile, and now he's got this onset dementia. He can't remember who like his family is half the time. He can't remember like the things that all these stories that he was uncovering about these like deaths and stuff during this fascist regime, and it was kind of just wild because he's just living this life. Very sad, but very, very powerful story. And just it's just sad to see this, and he's just holding on to everything dear, and like when he does remember something, it feels like such a victory.
Right.
20 Days in Mariupol, though, is maybe one of the toughest watches I've seen outside of Zone of Interest this year, because it's all about a reporter who was in Ukraine at a port in Mariupol during the initial onslaught of Russia.
All right.
And the fallout is, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's tear-jerking. It's just, I think I think it's so important to have a lens on these types of events and get these movies in front of people, because how else are you going to learn about it if not watching your favorite news network, whatever that may be, you know? So it's extremely delicate. I mean, it's not for faint of heart. I mean, you know what you're going to get coming in. It's a lot of real life death on screen, and it's very hard, but I think it's very necessary to know that this war is not over. There's a lot of devastation happening. And I think in a similar way, it's like you were talking about with the Israel-Palestine thing, like a lot of people who are very content to put their heads down while bad things are happening across the world. And it's like, we got to be aware that this stuff is going on. Real people are being killed, and it's like, they're innocent. So
For sure.
this is the downer part of the episode. But I think we definitely, you know, if we're going to say anything, you know, explore and educate yourself, and movies are a great way to do it. Documentaries are a great way to do it.
I feel generally the course of things with the documentary Oscar films is I feel they all become very available after the Oscars.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the problems, is that I think, well, To Kill a Tiger is not, it's not available, I think, anywhere right now. I know Bobby Wine is. That's a very interesting story from what I heard. A much more chipper one, but or I think mostly chipper, but and Four Daughters is very crazy. It's like, I think it's like two of the daughters of these four daughters in the title get like converted by ISIS. It's kind of wild. So a little bit of a lens on some of the, Israel Palestine. But lest we say that, I think everybody should watch a documentary and write into us if you have opinions about those, because we'd love to hear more about it.
Definitely.
Let's move on to animation.
Can you hit us with the noms first off for this one?
Sure. Happy to do so. So the best animated movies this year are The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki, Elemental, which is Pixar, Nimona, which was like a Netflix joint of sorts, Robot Dreams, I'm not sure who did that. Pablo Berger is the first, or Cormanzana. And then we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So, what were your thoughts on that? I've been doing a lot of talking.
No, it's all good. I have seen 2 of these films.
Okay, which ones?
I saw The Boy and the Heron. Or Why You Like This. No, it's not, that's not it, but like the real title is something like that. And I saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I would say Boy and the Heron is probably my top 3 of the Miyazaki's, but not my necessarily favorite. It's one that I'm excited to revisit because it it is not a very linear story. I mean, it does go from like A to B, but like it's very abstract. It's dealing with a lot of big ideas about like passing things on to the next people, what you're leaving behind, all these kind of big Miyazaki ideas that I love. I kind of like the more adult, like Spirited Away, Wind Rises Miyazaki. So
Yeah.
this was definitely up there for me. The thing that stood out the most for me, which we'll talk about later more, was the music. I think this is one of the best scores of the year.
It's so good. I really, really did enjoy. I mean, I enjoyed everything about The Boy and the Heron. I do want to watch it again in subtitles. Yeah. So, did you see any other animated movies this year?
Spider-Man, we saw together.
We did.
Yeah, we saw Across the Spider-Verse. Remember that was at the Avalon, and the sound was a little junky. I love the Avalon. We love the Avalon.
We do love the Avalon. I am frustrated with. I saw that in theaters twice, and both times I was told they had fixed the sound mixing issue. Thought the second time, yes, but I still had such a hard time understanding Spider-Punk, and it really made me sad.
I think it's hard because I like the ideas more in The Boy and the Heron, but I think animation wise, and I think my brain always wants to just think about the literal animation when I hear of animation award, even though I feel that's not it. It's kind of like overall. I still think I liked the first Spider-Man. I loved the second one, and I feel that's weird. Most people are kind of the opposite. But I just liked the clash of the paint and color styles. I feel that was much more noticeable in the second one.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was stretched, bigger emotions, more time on people than the first one. The first one felt very much like an animated Spider-Man movie, and I love that. This felt like it was going in for something more cathartic. The opening scene about the origin of Spider-Gwen?
Yeah.
Yeah, her opening origin story about her Peter Parker is very gut-wrenching and done really well. And just the watercolor effect of her stuff. I love the relationship with her and Shea Wiggum, just because I love Shea Wiggum. And I was very happy. Like, I'm not one of these people, like, if I know it's part one of part two, I'm never going to be like, no, I feel like it's half a movie. And I'm like, no, I went in knowing that there's going to be a conclusion. So that didn't bother me, the kind of cliffhanging ending.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a tough time with that sometimes. And it's weird because I think of like Dune 1.
No one gives Dune crap for this, and Dune does this exactly.
But I do think the same criticisms were there. People are like, I feel like I'm going to get a better sense for whether that was a great movie or a really good movie based on the second part, which, having not seen Dune 2 yet at this time, I understand makes it seem like it's a great movie now.
To me, I just think it's like now I don't see it as Dune 1 Part 2. And I'm being very good because you haven't seen it. I felt it. Okay, so Dune 1 feels like a chapter 1 and Dune 2 feels like a chapter 2. They both don't feel like clean, cohesive movies, and the two of them together don't. But I still don't care. I had a good time, and there were arcs. Like, stuff happened,
Yeah, which we'll save our Dune for next year when we do our next movie episode. Mm-hmm. But I think, there is definitely... This was not the strongest year for animated films overall.
You caught some more of them. Like, you saw Elemental. You saw Pneumonia.
Yeah, Pneumonia.
You caught Pneumonia this year.
Yeah.
You caught that one?
So I'll agree with you, though, because I think of the nominees, the two clear strong ones are Boy and the Heron and Across the Spider-Verse. I had some similar criticisms of Across the Spider-Verse where it's like, I felt like it was almost too much of a cliffhanger. I kind of want a movie to end or at least be a little more self-contained, but it didn't bother me to the point where I'm like, oh, I didn't like this movie. It was still great. But I think Boy and the Heron kind of edges that for me because it is a complete story.
Right.
We're done. And I do love everything about it. The music, the animation. I mean, Miyazaki still got it.
Mm-hmm.
I liked Elemental. It wasn't better than those two, but I liked it. I think it gets a lot more crap than it deserves. Nimona, I think it's an interesting story. It didn't hit everything for me, I think, the way I wanted, but it was some cool story elements. It's based on a graphic novel, so I think that's maybe worth pursuing for more people too. The one I wanted to call out. I don't know if you did see this or not. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Did not get nominated, and that's weird in a weak animated year.
I thought the movie was pretty good. I thought the animation was outstanding.
Yeah.
So that's another thing with me where I'm like, if we're rating this on best animation in a movie, that should be on the list. If we're talking about story, I thought it was whatever. That's not even my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. It's not much of a Turtles movie in the second half.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I would agree with that. I still liked it. I think I would have nominated over maybe Nimona or
So you're saying Nimona, make way, make way.
yeah. Yes, I am. So should win, will win, because I think it's kind of down to Heron and Spider-Verse.
It's going to be the Boy and the Heron because people are going to be like, Spider-Man, And it's not a complete story, so that's the other thing.
But Into the Spider-Verse did win best pick or best animated.
That was a contained movie, though.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
I will say, maybe like I've brought up before, maybe they'll Return to the King it, and the third one will get all the awards.
It's possible. I think there's that opportunity definitely available. Should we talk about best score?
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about best score, Fred?
Okay.
Wait, do you hear that?
Sounds like music coming from downstairs.
You know what? Joe's downstairs. I bet you he's still mad we haven't done the Street Fighter episode.
Well,
Hey, cut it out.
we'll never cover it if he does shit like that.
I know. I mean, I just don't know why he keeps trying to push us. I mean, he thinks because we're going to change the podcast name that we're going to suddenly do that episode.
No, and steel drums aren't cheap.
No, they're not.
Like, that's an expensive bit.
A movie that was not nominated for Best Original Score, Fred, but still, if anyone recognized that was from Anatomy of a Fall. And that song plays way too big of a role in that movie for what it is. But I think that's kind of why I loved it. Do you want me to give the nominees up top, or you just want to talk about your
I
favorites?
would love the ones up top.
Sorry, I could have done this from the top, but
No, usually I liked it the other way, and except for some of these that I didn't remember.
sure. Okay, so Best Original Score at the Oscars this year was American Fiction, which is by Laura Cartman, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, some guy named John Williams,
I haven't heard of them.
Killers of the Flower Moon, Robbie Robertson,
Hell yeah.
Oppenheimer, Ludwig Göransson, and Poor Things, which is Jerskin Fendrix. So, what were some of your favorite scores? And you can certainly go beyond the nominee category.
Well, mine pretty much matched up, except I have Boy and the Heron. And what was the last one you said on the list?
Poor Things.
Oh, I have Poor Things. So Poor Things is a great score, but like you're not gonna catch me throwing that on because it's a lot of like, it's very effective. But I've been listening to since the Oscars were kind of announced. There's a Spotify playlist you can type in like 2023 Oscar scores, and you can kind of hear all the different music. When that shit comes on, it is unsettling.
Yeah.
But I like it. I really think the music in Killers of the Flower Moon is really good. Robbie Robertson, he is an indigenous musician. Like he does a lot of music about like his culture, things that have happened. He's like that's what he does. So the idea of bringing him in, and what I love about this movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, it kind of kicks in with this like, oh shit, we're in a Scorsese movie score that Robbie Robertson does, and it has like Leo getting off the train. It looks very shot cool, but then it kind of all that goes away and it gets into the movie. And I just love that trick where it's like, oh, this is kind of moving, and then it kind of pulls the rug, but then the music is really great throughout, just the different choices he does. It's funny, I also had the American Fiction score on here because I love some jazz. Do you have that the composer's name off?
For American Fiction?
Yes.
Laura Cartman.
So she is a great, if you like to listen to film scores, TV scores, check her out. She did the score for Ms. Marvel.
Oh, wow.
And the music of Ms. Marvel was kind of like my favorite part. I think and the performance too. I love her, but that music in there, I've been listening to her stuff a lot, and I love that jazzy score in there.
I didn't really think as much about the score coming out of there, but man, when you think back on it and you listen to it again, you're like, this was pretty cool. I really appreciated American Fiction's score. I also fully agree with Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought that was awesome. I love just every scene felt like it filled in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote down Poor Things. That's not a soundtrack I'm gonna go seek out, but I thought it was perfect for the movie.
Yeah, there's like that instrument where you like hold a stick and you like swirl it around and it makes like a
Yeah.
It sounds like the score was made with that, a theremin. Like,
yeah, you have just
theremin.
like you've got like a fucking like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins just with his little like music machine.
Yeah,
he's got on.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I just love that it sounds like some weird theater shit.
Yeah. Did you have any other scores that? Oh, you said Boy and the Heron was one you really liked.
Boy and the Heron. I mean, I listened to, is it Hitachi? Joe Hitachi, I think.
Oh, yes. I think you're correct. Shaishi, yeah. For Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, he has a lot of great albums where he'll like go to like the Philharmonic and they'll play his music from all his movies. I love the Kiki's Delivery Service score. He actually was in Chicago somewhat recently, and the tickets were like $500 to see him like perform with an orchestra. But the Boy and the Heron score is probably my most listened to score of this year. But I think it's good. I think Ludwig's coming home with that.
Yeah. I love it.
It's a good one. It works within the movie. It's another one where it's a hard listen to, like when you're at work or something.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, either way, I think he's great. He's done so many wonderful scores. We were just talking about this earlier today, Jasmine, my fiance, and I, about just how much Miyazaki movies I think are really great, like intros for kids to things that are non-Disney. Disney movies are, I mean, obviously great. They're classics and everything. But I think if you want to give kids other animated movies that aren't just like American Tail, or we've been talking about Rankin Bass a lot last few episodes. But
yeah, I wish I would have had Miyazaki worked in when I was young, but my parents didn't know.
No, I didn't either. I asked my mom, I was like, do you know who Miyazaki is? Do you know what My Neighbor Totoro is? She's like, never heard of it. I'm like, so I'm very intent on like, I want my nephews to watch some of those.
Oh, for
movies.
sure.
Probably my own kids someday, hopefully.
Yeah, just like the younger, it's like, I feel like with kids, you almost don't want to show them anything new or else they're never going to like the old stuff.
I know, right? That's the problem. I also liked from best scores, I kind of like the Beau is Afraid score. And I really love that whole scene. We talked about it in the Ari Aster episode of where Beau is kind of watching like that old version of his life with his family, and the music during that is just so beautiful. I was just like, man, this is like the perfect for this moment. It's kind of ethereal while also being very kind of storyteller type. And I just one of the few moments in that movie too where I really heard the score and was like, this is awesome. And I think we talked about Ari Aster. He does so much intention with his music that it's just always great to find. I am also going to throw in just one, The Killer, and not for all the Smith songs. I think I was okay with a lot of that. It's the Trent Reznor stuff in there with like the pacing and some of the scenes. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I heard their score for Challengers is bomb.
Oh, is that right?
I'm excited for that.
I am excited too. God, he's just another one of those guys, kind of like Danny Elfman or like, who else am I thinking of? Who is it Mark Metcalf? Who is Mothersbaugh? Who is from Devo? Became like a big composer for TV shows and stuff in later years. But yeah, I think Trent Reznor, I mean, you're like, this is the Nine Inch Nails guy. And you can tell when you know that's where he's from. But I would have given it to Poor Things. I think that's a beautiful, just an awesome score. It's going to be Göransson. It's going to be Oppenheimer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scoopy scoop.
Yeah. So that maybe sets us up perfectly for the last category of the episode, Fred. Best movie of the year. What were your favorites from nominees and beyond.
I'll just do like my top 3.
Okay.
So it moved in the end. Originally, I had Oppenheimer as number 1. And Killers of the Flower Moon, I've rewatched both at home, and I think that one just does more for me. I think because it being a story that not a lot of people were familiar with, I'm just like, this is something that more people need to see. Like, because people think of genocide as like something that happened way, way longer ago. It's like, no, it's still happening. And, it's kind of like the Tulsa story, which has worked into the film kind of really well, I think. It's these American stories that aren't talked about enough and should be a part of like every history class.
Yeah.
Like Killers of the Flower Moon, maybe not the whole thing, it's a long movie, but that's a movie that I think should be taught in schools, more than Oppenheimer. I think you're going to get more out of it than that, like as a student.
Yeah.
Then my number 3 is, Fred's Gonna Fred is The Killer.
Yeah.
And that's the movie, like, I didn't expect it to get awards, but I can't believe a David Fincher movie came out. I know it came out on Netflix, but like no one has seen it.
Got ignored. Yeah. And I think if you've seen it, you talk about it. I mean, I threw nominations at it kind of up and down our episode.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and I kind of realized, I was like, is this movie good? Like, I was like, this movie might be better than I gave it credit for. I don't even know if it made my best pictures list, and I kind of want to put it on there now.
Because it's a movie that it's pretty much a thriller. There's a little bit more going to it, but it is a thriller, but an expertly constructed and pulled off thriller that's Oscar worthy.
Yeah, it is. It is just great. I liked it a lot. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's like sharper thinking man's John Wick.
Yes.
With less action, but there's plenty of action in it.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a meditation, I think, on it too.
Mm-hmm. Probably the best one-on-one fight of the year. Him versus the Florida guy.
Oh God, that
fight is
amazing
insane.
scene. I loved it. Yeah, I think it's a great movie. I think you called it out though too. Killers of the Flower Moon. I didn't put that as my top 3 favorites, but it is one of my favorites of the year. I really liked. I think you called it out too. I love when movies are calling attention to events that we never really got to know about. And I think about like the show Watchmen and like how it brought a lot of attention to the Tulsa massacre, that like people were like, was this real? Oh my God, this was real. Like, and you're like, wow, did people bury that? And there's so many events in our country that are just our country alone that we don't think about. And we talk about this with Zone of Interest too. But I mean, it's a great thing. I'll throw out just a few movies. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I did put Talk to Me down.
Hell yeah.
So if you have other ones you want to throw into after this, you can. Godzilla -1 was so good.
I really need to see it.
It's everything you want from a Godzilla movie and then some. Dungeons and Dragons.
Hell yeah.
Honor Among Thieves. It's the same guys who did Game Night, and it's wonderful.
Feel like the dead soldier scene, probably one of the funniest scenes of the year.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Just the sheer humor of bringing these guys back and then messing up the questioning over and over again. I really want to watch that again.
I've watched it twice.
It's so funny.
Good.
I mean, and it's so sad that some of these movies don't get attention because you have a horror movie, you have a weird like foreign sci-fi movie, you have a weird fantasy movie, but it's like, but people loved these. People were lining up to go and see these, like, or people have found them later and are like, this is one of my favorite movies now. And then I'll also call out one I saw earlier in the year and I thought was going to maybe be sneaky in the award circuit. It's called How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Yes, I forgot about that. Another one that kind of came out early.
You did. And I think if it had come out late, I wonder if maybe it would have given itself a little better run.
A screenplay, maybe.
Talk about a movie that's calling out issues, though. It's like, again, sort of like, here's just a Ocean's 11 type movie that has sort of like some like political connotations to it, just about like the consumption of oil and like what living near like some of these oil fields can do to people and like processing or like even like petroleum and just what it's doing. It's a very, very powerful movie. It's a very tense movie. It's super exciting. I loved it when it came out, and I was just, again, like Blackberry, I think sad that it just got nothing.
Yeah, I was just gonna re-echo just other movies. The ones we've already said. Blackberry, Beau's Afraid, kind of got a little, understandably didn't get very many awards, but that was a movie that was big for me for sure.
Yeah, it was all good. Of the nominees, and I'll say these now. So we have American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. So of the nominees, I kind of intentionally left these out because I didn't go with my top 3 of the year because I didn't really make a top 3 of everything. I should have. I just did the nominees. I really enjoyed, I mean, I've already talked about Anatomy of a Fall. I don't need to say anything else. It's a great movie. I really liked Oppenheimer. I'm a basic Nolan fan, but it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for a film, bro, when Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, and David Fincher all came out with a movie this year.
I know.
It's hard to seem like I have varied tastes, but Fred's going Fred. Like literally, those are like in my top like 5 to 10 of directors, and they all made a movie this year.
know.
So it's kind of like too much. You should have spread the love.
They all made a good movie too, and The Killer I think is going to find late life. I think people are going to find it and they'll love it.
I can't wait to get a physical media copy of that.
Yes, not a Netflix streaming thing that'll probably get buried somewhere. I originally put The Holdovers as one of my top 3. I still really like that movie. I think American Fiction jumped it, and I really liked American Fiction.
I think I could see that too. The Holdovers does have the benefit. Like, that's a movie I'll watch, like, maybe not every year at Christmas, but like that'll be a movie at Christmas time. Like, oh, I'm gonna throw on The Holdovers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the Cord Jefferson, who directed American Fiction, is another guy. Buy season tickets now because I think
yes,
he'll be around.
and see his interviews, because you can kind of tell Jeffrey Wright really like based his character off of him.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I like saw some just like he's very like the clean cut, nice outfit, very like, yes, I'm gonna tell you about. Like he's very much like that.
That's so funny.
I would say another one that I don't think deserves like a best picture, but deserved like people talking about it more, because I did nominate. I thought Kiefer Sutherland was really good in The Caine Mutiny, and I thought that was an excellent script. And I think it was originally a play, and you can tell that it's a play. It's a very play movie, but
Yeah.
I thought it was just good to see Kiefer like in a movie doing something that's not like a Fox TV show, you know? Like,
Yeah, I think we did talk about it in the Freakin' episode that he was adapting that as from a play. So yeah, which isn't it funny? All of our podcast episodes are now starting to like bubble up to hear Ari Aster, William Friedkin.
Well, I feel better. I forgot we did a Freakin' episode, so I know I probably gave some Kiefer love.
Yeah, that was all back from the State of the Franchise days.
Yeah.
Though. Now we're into the Show Me the Franchise.
Show me the franchise.
So the big question then, Fred, what should win? What will win?
Well, I'd like to examine all the probabilities if I could, but there's so many here, and I'd like to say that Oppenheimer would probably win, but I was watching that. I was doing that to Ashley all last night. Like, if I go to the kitchen, I get a beer, I'm probably going to drink it. That is the probability.
You're kind of almost doing like, I know you're doing Oppenheimer, but I also feel like there's a little bit of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, it's a little, it's without that, you know.
It's without that drunk.
But it's still the same pitch. I'm going to talk to you about this.
It's almost like Cillian Murphy watched him play that and thought, I'm going to do it. So you think will win, should win?
Yeah. Like I said, like I just don't want Christopher Nolan to lose and then win for something like, oh, this feels like a makeup Oscar.
Yeah.
Like, it's boring. Let's just get it done. And then like Nolan can, like you said, make like Tenet -1 because it's a sequel. So it's got to be, you know, back.
Right. I think if there was one that I thought should, I mean, I've been banging the drum for it. Anatomy of a Fall was my #1 this year. I would love to see that win because, one, it is a female director. And I think that would be kind of a cool little, like, hey, we may have messed up the Greta Gerwig thing, but we still got a woman winning. And I think she would deserve it. I think if that wins anything, I don't think it's going to. I'm more interested in what she's going to do next.
Yeah.
And I think that's another person. Buy your tickets now. 'Cause
For sure.
it's coming back. But will win is going to be Oppenheimer, and I'm going to have no issues with it. I think it's Christopher Nolan's time. We've already litigated that to death, and it's going to be, I think, a worthwhile win, and it's going to be exciting because, yeah, I am excited for him to. I think he put passion into this. There's nothing wrong about that. I just don't want him to chase biopics thinking, yeah, I got to keep trying to do this to get my award. But it's like, again, the guy has done so much for cinema. And I think this is kind of the perfect world culmination of like Oscars love what you're doing. Fans love what you're doing. Meld it all together. We have your Oscar. And then let's go, baby. Like, give me some weird bullshit sci-fi thing you've been studying for who knows how long.
And if you're on the fence about Oppenheimer winning that, just remember Jack Quaid played the hell out of those bongos. That was the first thing on the rewatch. I was like, "Oh, Jack Quaid, he's playing the bongos a bunch."
God, that's right. God, what a list of movies. Josh Hart did in that movie too. And it's a great thing. We didn't get into a lot of the performances, but I mean, there are so many good ones this year, and just people in bit parts and stuff. So we'll be spending more time of that on hopefully our Patreon coming up, focusing on these little things. But for now, Fred, I think that's going to bring me into our best movies of 2023 episode. I think we had talked about giving this a special name. Maybe next year we'll give this our own special flair.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. We're figuring things out as we go.
We are. And I think in the meantime, while we are figuring out a lot of these things, I'm not going to belabor you guys on all the links and stuff. You can find it in our link tree. Check out the description and keep an eye out for a link to our new Patreon that will be launching here in the next week. I think there's going to be some exciting content. Our very first episode, I think we're going to be following a very similar theme to this, talking a little bit about maybe something that's not quite movies, but similar to movies.
Yeah.
Something in the boob tube realm.
Hey. Love that.
Yeah. But Fred, before we get to plug in anything else, anything you want to plug yourself?
No, I'm just happy everyone's going to listen to the show. Enjoy this. Enjoy your Oscars. Check out some of these movies if you have not checked them out yet. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I think I don't have much else to say. Check out our links in the link tree. Rate and review the show. That will help. Thank you so much to, everyone else who has been a listener so far. We're excited to take the next leg of this journey with you. Stay tuned for next time on so I think we might be giving you guys a sneak peek on the next time for our Patreon. So Best TV of 2023 is up next. We'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Got no cares, 'cause all I wanna do is charge my phone, drive, listen, and